Do you know which Confederate general of America, whose early actions in the American Civil War eventually led him to become the overall commander of the Confederate States Army near the end of the war? Which American Civil War general is known as the Great Tactician for his strategic brilliance? Who is called the South's greatest general among the Confederates? Which American general is known as the Marble Man for his discipline, morality, and character? He is RobertELee, one of the most influential Confederate generals during the American Civil War. He later served as the president of Washington College, now Washington and Lee University. He was born on January 19, 1807, at Stratford Hall, Westmoreland County, Virginia. United States. RobertELee played important roles in the Mexican-American War, West Point and Texas service, and the Civil War, improved his skill in the U.S. Army. He was one of the most prominent Confederate generals during the American Civil War. After the war, he served as the president of Washington College, now Washington and Lee University. RobertELee died on October 12, 1870, in Lexington, Virginia, United States. In this video, we will learn in detail about RobertELee. Early life and education. RobertELee was born on January 19, 1807, in Westmoreland County, Virginia, into an aristocratic but financially declining family. His father, Henry Lighthorse Harry Lee, was a famous cavalry officer of the American Revolutionary War and a former governor of Virginia, while his mother, Anna Hill Carter Lee, was gentle, disciplined, and deeply religious. From childhood, Lee was disciplined, quiet, and responsible. Because of financial hardship, his youth was difficult, but his mother taught him morality, honesty, and self-control. In 1825, Lee entered the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He demonstrated outstanding discipline and excellence, graduating in 1829 with no demerits, an extraordinary achievement in the Academy's history. He graduated second in his class and was commissioned into the Engineer Corps, laying a strong foundation for his military career. Career as a military strategist. Lee began his career as an engineering officer, working on fortifications, military structures, and defense projects. His superb map-reading ability, strategic thinking, and quick decision-making soon made him well known in the Army. Later, during the Civil War, as commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, he became one of the most skilled strategists in U.S. history. His defensive and offensive plans, seen in the 7 Days Battles, Second Bull Run, Fredericksburg, and Chancellorsville, remain important examples in military education. His leadership strengthened the morale of his soldiers, who trusted him deeply even in dire circumstances. Though his decisions at Gettysburg proved disastrous, RobertELee remains one of the greatest commanders in the history of warfare. Marriage and family. In 1831, RobertELee married Marianna Randolph Custis, daughter of George Washington Parke Custis, the adopted son of President George Washington. Thus, Lee became part of the Washington family legacy. The couple had 7 children, 3 sons and 4 daughters. Their family life was peaceful and close-knit. Lee was a caring father and responsible family man. Even when away, his affectionate letters reveal his gentle and human nature. Mary suffered long-term illness, but Lee remained devoted and kept the family strong. Mexican-American War. When the Mexican-American War began in 1846, Lee's military brilliance came to full light. Serving under General Winfield Scott, he fought in Veracruz, Cerro Gordo, Contreras, Chapultepec, and other major battles. His reconnaissance missions, terrain analysis, and fearless intelligence gathering were crucial. General Scott was so impressed that he called Lee the most talented officer in the Army. This war shaped Lee's future and prepared him for his legendary role as the South's top commander in the American Civil War. West Point in Texas. In 1825, RobertELee entered West Point and demonstrated exceptional discipline and academic strength. Graduating second in 1829, he joined the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Throughout the 1830s and 1840s, he worked on forts, river control projects, and defense systems. He was later posted to Texas, a strategically tense region. Here, Lee's practical military leadership, terrain understanding, and engineering expertise became clearly evident. Arlington plantation and Custis slaves. In 1831, after marrying Marianna Randolph Custis, Lee took responsibility for Arlington House, Arlington Plantation. The estate had many enslaved people belonging to the Custis family. After Custis's death in 1857, Lee became executor of the property and managed the labor system until the enslaved workers were freed, as Custis's will required their emancipation within 5 years. Though Lee claimed he morally disliked slavery, historical evidence shows he enforced plantation discipline strictly, leading to later controversies. Arlington later became Arlington National Cemetery, a major American memorial site. Harper's Ferry and returned to Texas. In 1859, when abolitionist John Brown launched an armed revolt at Harper's Ferry, Lee was urgently assigned by the U.S. government to suppress it. He swiftly led U.S. Marines, surrounded Brown's forces, and ended the revolt with minimal bloodshed. This incident revived his national reputation. Afterward, Lee briefly served in the East before being reassigned to Texas, where political tensions rose as the nation moved toward war. From Texas, he observed the deepening divide between North and South. When the Civil War began in 1861, he returned to Virginia and made the life-changing decision to side not with the Union, but with his home state of Virginia Civil War. By 1861, RobertELee was a respected U.S. Army officer. Though he did not strongly support slavery, loyalty to Virginia led him to resign and join the Confederacy. He quickly rose to general and became the Confederacy's leading strategist. For 3 years, his bold leadership and aggressive strategies kept the South in the fight RobertElee's battles in the Civil War. Lee led the Confederacy in its most significant victories. In the 7 Days Battles, 1862, he forced General McClellan to retreat. He won major victories at Second Bull Run, Fredericksburg, and Chancellorsville. However, his miscalculations at Gettysburg, 1863, severely damaged the Confederate cause. From 1864 to 1865, General Grant's overland campaign and the siege of Petersburg exhausted Lee's forces. On April 9, 1865, he surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse, marking the end of the Civil War post-war life. Lee was not punished for treason. Instead, he was respected for the sake of national reconciliation. In 1865, he became president of Washington College in Virginia. He focused on education, moral development, and rebuilding the South's young generation. He avoided political controversy and encouraged peace and unity titles. Throughout his life and after, Lee earned many titles: Marble Man for discipline and character, Old Man by his soldiers, the Great Tactician for his strategic mastery, the South's greatest general among Confederates' legacy. RobertELee became a legendary figure in the post-war South and a central symbol of the lost cause myth. Though earlier generations compared him to Caesar, Napoleon, and Washington, modern historians often question his long-term strategic judgment and note that many of his victories relied on weak Union leadership. He applied for citizenship restoration after the war, but due to a clerical mistake, it was not processed. In 1975, he was granted full citizenship posthumously. Many monuments, parks, and institutions were dedicated to him, though many were removed in recent years. Arlington House, his former residence, is now part of Arlington National Cemetery. Illness, death, and funeral. In his final years, Lee suffered from heart disease. In September 1870, his condition worsened, and on October 12, 1870, at age 63, he passed away. His death brought sorrow throughout the South. He was buried in the chapel of Washington College, later known as Lee Chapel.